Hello, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about Doctor Strange 2, the Multiverse of Madness. I really liked the film. It was very different from what I initially expected the overarching story to be. To be honest, I'm not even sure exactly what I was expecting, but this was very different, and there were elements of this where I expected things to be a lot smaller in terms of its overarching role in the story. They did a really good job at making things fit very well together, especially within that 2-hour time frame, to the point where there wasn't really anything that I would say was extraneous or extra to the plot, and I really appreciated that. It felt like the movie really had a solid focus on what it was going for, but that being said, I do think there are some things that could have been a little bit better in the story, and some things that I wish they probably did or had more of as the story went on. That being said, before we actually get into some spoilers, I did want to mention that I would say that this is a decent, probably like a B-level-ish Marvel movie. It's not at the top tier, but it's by no means something that I would say is a poor Marvel movie. I think it's just average or above average in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts on that. If you have seen the movie, do you think that it's a higher tier, or do you not like the movie at all? Just let me know in the comments below on that. Now that we are getting into the actual spoilers of the film, let's get into it. If you haven't watched the actual movie, please click off here. But yeah, without further ado, let's get to it. We are going to be talking about Wanda in this movie, specifically how she is the main antagonist. I did not expect this at all. I suspected that there would be some conflict between her and Strange once or twice, or at some point throughout this film. I knew they would come to blows, especially with what I saw in that initial trailer. I only watched one trailer, I think, for this movie, and that was mainly because I did not want to be spoiled, but also because I just wanted to enjoy the experience in the theaters without having much of an idea as to where the movie was going to go. That being said, I do think that it was a good choice to have Wanda just be the antagonist because it kept the movie focused and straightforward. I will just say the only thing here that I was concerned about, or would say that could have been done a little bit better, is the explanation as to why Wanda was the villain. I mean, at the end of WandaVision, also spoilers for that if you haven't seen it, I presumed that Wanda would be looking for her children, but not necessarily doing what she decides to do in this movie, where she's trying to essentially kill another version of herself and assume that role as the mother of Billy and Tommy in that universe, which is very messed up. But also the idea that she has like no qualms with what she's doing even after the Darkhold is destroyed, that whole thing didn't jive well for me without an explanation as to if the Darkhold really is the cause of this corruption of her soul. Like, is it permanently corrupting her? That is what I presume is happening, because we see some type of impact of using the Darkhold later on as well on Steven's side. So that's what I assume is happening. It's just we don't really get much of an explanation on that. Or we could probably say that Wanda is still kind of reeling and has perhaps gone to a much more insane route since we last saw her in WandaVision. It's just, I feel like we need a little bit more time to maybe explore that, especially because of how much of the movie is focused around her. That being said, overall, I do think that Elizabeth Olsen brought a great vibe as a villain in this film. I think she did a wonderful job in this role as usual, and it kind of brought out, I feel like, a different element to the character, or perhaps it was a more intense version of what we see in WandaVision, where in WandaVision, it's very vague as to whether or not she has a true understanding of everything that she's doing, and even in the end, it's like, well, how much of this is conscious, how much of it is just that she emotionally was charged and this whole thing happened, and then once it happened she just didn't want to stop. Like, there is some contention there as to how much of that was willful ignorance, how much of that was her really trying to be a little bit more malicious. I would say in that front she's still more or less just the Avenger that we've known thus far, but here she's very clearly fallen down the deep end, and I do believe that we needed a bit more of that at least at the start, at least once the reveal happened, to show what happened to her, how she really became in the way that she is now. And perhaps it is just the idea that she's dreaming of Billy and Tommy day in and day out, that along with the influence of the Darkhold that made her go insane here. I mean, that is possible. It's just we don't get enough time because it's a Doctor Strange film to really see that unfold or see that backstory component there. That being said, despite this being a Stephen Strange-oriented movie, I mean, the entire focus is really on Wanda. We get a journey for Stephen, which is essentially he has to move on. I mean, he can't wait around for the love of his life to come back to him. The idea here is that Stephen Strange isn't really going to end up with his main love interest because he's focused on being the hero, and that is who he asks to be. So that is always the trade-off that he makes. I mean, I don't hate that idea, but also I feel like we didn't need to see Christine in this movie beyond that initial wedding scene. I felt like just that would have been nice enough to tie that in and say, you know, Steven's never gonna be the happy guy that has the love of his life by his side and the power that he seeks, the knowledge that he seeks, and the perhaps inflated sense of ego that is associated with him wanting to be the person that everyone goes to for help. I mean, having all of those things at once is just not going to work. We saw that in What If. We see that in all these alternate timelines, or at least two other alternate timelines that we see and actually spend a lot of time with. It is just what it is, right? And I think that we didn't really need to see Christine throughout the movie multiple times, have her be like a recurring aspect of his character here. I just felt like we could have moved on. That being said, I didn't hate the characterization of Christine. I didn't hate the moments with her. I just thought that it was unnecessary because it kind of felt like at the end of Doctor Strange 2 that whether or not they got together, it wasn't really a main focus of the story. I gotta say, I liked the amount of Wong that we saw in this movie, but I think we could have done with a bit more, and I think this is partially due to the shortened time of this film. I mean, having only 2 hours, there's only so much you could do, but I do think especially with how much we've seen Wong over the last year, having him in this movie a little bit more would have been nice, especially considering he is the Sorcerer Supreme. Beyond that, I also think that he should be more capable as Stephen in this role, because the thing is with Stephen, his downfall is his arrogance. His downfalls are that he is always looking to be the person that gets everything and like does everything and fixes the situation, whereas in the other universes it's clear that having that ambition is detrimental to him. Now, on the other hand, Wong doesn't really seem to have that, but at the same time, if you're going to give him the role of Sorcerer Supreme, he should really be the strongest or one of the most powerful wizards are on the planet, or at the very least he should be as strong as Strange here. Whereas Stephen is showing all these different dynamic types of spells, we don't really see as much of that with Wong. What he shows us is some very cool technical acumen, and he's also showing us that he's capable of using these weapons and stuff like that. I think we can see that Wong is capable here, but I think that we just needed a bit more in terms of the grand nature of the magic that he's using. I did also like that he was there with Scarlet Witch throughout the movie, that he was in that room following along with her, and it had him being more involved with the story without him following Stephen along on his journey. It was just a nice secondary element to have in that story, and I think it was well done. But again, I just think having more of Wong as a focus of this film would have been nice, especially because it's a Doctor Strange movie and Wong is inherently tied to the Doctor Strange mythos. That being said, let us talk about America Chavez. Now, her powers are to travel the multiverse, and I thought this was interesting because, well, there's only one of her in all the realities. That's cool, that's interesting, but like, she's essentially a MacGuffin this entire movie, and all we really hear about her is that she lost her parents and that she's been being thrown throughout realities on and on throughout her life. It's something that she can't control, and then at the end of the story, she's just able to control her powers, as opposed to having to train in them. I just didn't really like this. I thought that it would have been better for her to actually have to start training at the end of the film, as opposed to her just becoming a magician at the end. I mean, it just doesn't work for me to have her be incapable of using her abilities the entire movie, and then suddenly just having her being able to control it. I don't inherently completely hate this. There's only so many characters that you can focus on in a story like this in such a shortened period of time. However, it's not an excuse in my mind. Also, alongside this, there is something that I recently heard, which was apparently in Doctor Strange 1, the Ancient One states that the sling rings can be used to travel the multiverse. So I assume this is a retcon from that film, but I just wish that it was also addressed there in some way, shape, or form, especially because we still have everyone using sling rings in this movie. I want to know more about what the limitations of a sling ring are, what exactly the Ancient One meant when she said that, etc. Apparently, America Chavez is also a very big LGBTQ character in the comics, so I just think that having her there and not showing the other facets of her character or spending more time with her, especially like when she is alongside Doctor Strange this entire movie, it's just a bit odd in terms of the choosing of what elements to show of this character. I mean, essentially, she's just a character with superpowers, and nothing more about her is all that much explored. Now, again, I understand it's a Doctor Strange film, but if you're introducing such a character that is essentially pivotal to the entire movie, it would be nice to know a little bit more about them. Now let's talk about the multiverse in this movie. I gotta say, I loved the choosing of who they showed in the Illuminati, and the reason for that is, of course, Charles Xavier coming in with that 97 X-Men theme. I mean, having him in this story was just amazing to see. He does look a lot older, which is, obvious because he's pretty old now, but the fact that he was willing to come back even just for this, I loved that. It was wonderful to see him on screen. Similarly, I mean, we get Mordo. I mean, I wasn't expecting him to be an alternate counterpart, but it is what it is. I mean, I feel like we'll never get to see Mordo's storyline continue on in the future, just because that No More Sorcerers thing was so long ago, and I think the focus of the MCU is different. John Krasinski on the team was absolutely phenomenal. I wasn't expecting that at all. I thought that we were probably going to see an alternate version of Iron Man, but we didn't get that. But John Krasinski being in this scene, I hope this is a tease for seeing him in Fantastic Four as well as the character. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but I really, really hope it's true. Beyond that, we do get to see Black Bolt, which I thought it was cool to just have him there, but like, they should have done a bit more with his power set. I mean, his powers are really cool, but then again, how do you show that on screen in such an interesting manner without breaking everyone's eardrums? I don't really think you can, but that being said, it was cool to see him. Finally, we get to see Monica's mom. I forget what her specific name was. She's also a Rambo. She was a member of SWORD in our timeline. All that jazz was interesting to see, but like, again, I didn't really need to see it, but like, I'm glad that we did, because it's nice to have these elements that are consistent between different timelines, where I presume she becomes the Miss Marvel of that universe. So I think it's cool. I didn't really need it, but like, it was nice. Finally, I gotta say, it was very interesting to see Captain Carter in this universe. My question here is she the Captain Carter from What If? If not, I mean, that's fine. I just think it would be cool if it was, but then again, I don't want Captain Carter to be dead. I would actually prefer her to be alive and kicking, but that's okay. I mean, either way, it was nice to have that little tie-in between the What If series and this one here. Let's talk incursions. They explain in this movie that the incursions are a cause of people who are interacting with different universes. The idea is dreamwalkers, or people that actually traverse the multiverse, can inadvertently cause an incursion in which two universes collide. Now, I believe this is a little different from the comics, in which the incursions take place when, I believe, like one version of Earth or several versions of Earth are destroyed, and as a result that creates a vacuum type of situation within the multiverse, and so all the Earths start colliding with one another. Regardless, I don't think that's really important. I think that it's just cool that they're actually going for it. I mean, the idea of two Earths reaching a point in which an incursion is about to happen, having to talk to one another, figure out what the situation is, what they're going to try and do. I mean, that whole thing is going to be so cool to see in the future. I assume it's going to tie in with Kang. I assume it's going to end in a Secret Wars of sorts in the future. I mean, I think it's going to be phenomenal to see where they move this story as we go forward, especially because, like, this is a huge event from recent memory. I mean, that's going to be so cool to see. Finally, let's talk about the consequences of holding the Darkhold. Now, we see that for some reason, Stephen Strange, in 2 different universes using the Darkhold, ends in him getting his third eye. Now, I don't know what this means. Does this mean he's gaining some level of enlightenment? Does this mean that he is instead getting some level of corruption in his soul? Is, like, what does this actually signify? I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get a huge explanation on it, or is Stephen just going to have a third eye moving forward and it is what it is? I'm really not sure. I presume moving forward we are going to see Stephen, dealing with the ramifications of this third eye in some way, but whether or not it's going to be a full-on negative, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much I like this, just because it looks a little weird to have a CGI'd eye on your forehead. To me, it was a weird element and it didn't look the best in my mind. Maybe you guys disagree, but to me the CGI for the eye was the thing that really threw me off. But that being said, I mean, we'll just have to wait and see on that front. On the other hand, Wanda doesn't seem as, destroyed by the usage of the Darkhold. I do wonder why she doesn't have a third eye herself. Is it because she happens to be the Scarlet Witch? I'm not sure. I want a bit more of an explanation on that. It would be very helpful. That being said, that is all I have to say for this video. There was a lot to unpack, and honestly, I could go on for like an hour to keep going, but, I gotta edit this video at some point, so I decided to end it up here. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on the movie in the comments below. Are you excited for what's happening in the future with Secret Wars, with the Incursions? Are you curious to see what happens next with Doctor Strange in the Dark Dimension? I mean, I'm excited to see what happens moving forward. That being said, if you like the video, please like the video, subscribe for more videos from me on this channel, and have a wonderful day. I will see you next time. Bye.